Now broadcasting from the Next Gen Conservative Studio in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report with Sam Whitfield.
Alrighty, everyone, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Whitfield Report. And I am joined here by a bit of a legend in the author slash podcasting space, Mr. Jeff Clark, who is the host of the Course of Action podcast, and he's also an author. I did not realize until a couple minutes ago that you had already published a book, but that's very interesting. So, folks, I really don't do much background research on my guests before I have them because I like to allow them to, talk about themselves. So first off, Jeff, welcome to the program, and it's an honor to have you. And
appreciate it. Appreciate the awesome intro, man. I don't know if I'm a legend, but I certainly appreciate it.
Well, let me put it this way. Course of Action, I was thinking of this today. There are 3 podcasts that I really never make sure I miss. One of them is the Fake Untitled podcast, which is hosted by a friend of the show, Craig. The next is the All In podcast, which is hosted by David Sachs and a couple of the venture capitalist podcasters out there. And then your podcast, which I just started listening to at the end of 2023, has kind of become a go-to for discovering new authors. So,
thank you.
I'm pretty impressed. But Jeff, why don't you just begin by telling us a little bit about your background, just in general? How did you, get started in podcasting and just your background in general and writing?
Well, I did 12 years on active duty in the Air Force. I worked in logistics in the medical field. And then I medically retired in 2017. I had a broken back and broken shoulders, so they medically retired me and had me go my own way. And then I came back to government service about 7 months later, and I worked as a search and recovery specialist and an operations officer on the civilian side. And I've been doing that ever since. I recently just switched the job over to data analytics, something a little less physical that I really enjoy. And as far as the podcast goes, and I really appreciate you being a avid listener, man, because as you know, it's difficult in the podcast space sometimes to try to keep things going. But I started that. It was kind of an idea back during COVID. I really wanted to do something that was creative, but also allowed me to kind of reach out and talk to people and still form some relationships and learn, because it was going to be, we didn't know how long it was going to go on for, but I thought if I started it, it'd be a good way of still talking to people and expanding, how you advertise. And I had my book that was going to be coming out, and I really just jumped into it. Now, I'll say this. I bought the equipment to do the podcast, and then I waited probably 8 or 9 months before I actually kicked it off, because I just kind of had the hesitancy of, what if I fail? What if it sucks? And
Sure.
I was a little afraid of that. And then I finally just dove in, because I had a whole bunch of people who were like, dude, that'd be awesome. Book me as one of your guests. And I had 10 guests like immediately. So I just dove in and did it. I had no idea what I was doing. I've learned a ton of lessons along the way. And what you see today is a lot of lessons learned, a lot of help from other people, getting some tips and tricks here and there, and just constantly learning. I think we're in the 80s on episodes, I think, like 83, 84 by the time people hear this, I think. And it's just been a fun ride. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I've been podcasting really since like I was a teenager. And I started way back in 2008, really before people even knew what podcasting was. And even now, I'm still learning, about podcasting, even though I've been in it, just because I find that the format, kind of keeps evolving. When I started podcasting, it was more like it was basically internet talk radio, basically,
Hmm.
and that's how a lot of people, myself included, were doing the show. And then Rogan kind of flipped the script by doing just long form interviews and conversations. And so um, when I moved to Florida in 2014, I kind of retired my old brand and started doing more long form type podcasts. And yeah, I mean, it's ever changing. And I mean, I just turned 29, but I mean, now there are even kids like younger than me who are just doing podcasts from their phone now. And it's kind of crazy. So, um,
Yeah.
and like you said, you just kind of have to jump into it. And, just from your guest list, I mean, I'm impressed with some of the guests you've had on. I mean, I just, I, I tweeted this at you the other day. I just listened to your podcast with Brian Andrews and Jeff Wilson, who,
Yeah. Good
um,
guys.
you know, I just started reading the Tier One series last year, and people are like, "Wait, you just now started reading the Tier One series?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen it around, but there have been a bunch of authors that because I was in college for so many years, I had to kind of wait, and they were one of them. But I'm glad I got into them. And you've also had Brad Thor on, which I can't imagine that's no small feat to get someone like Brad on your podcast. So
Well,
yeah,
I'll give Brad some credit. Like he was certainly open to doing it. I had made good friends with his publicist, so I know him. I knew him well enough to ask, and I just said, what are the chances that Brad would do it? Because I don't see him doing a lot of podcasts. I don't think he really
right.
doesn't need to. But I said, what would be the odds of getting him and Kyle Mills on? And he was like, email me about a month before their book releases, and we'll set it up. I was like, cool. So I did, and Brad had no problem with it. It was a quick 45 minutes, and afterwards he was like, I can't believe it went by that fast. You are an excellent host. So I was like, it was awesome. And Brad's one of my favorite authors, so it was kind of like one of those. Um, if I got him to be on the show and then I was forced to shut the podcast down the very next day, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, Brad was my favorite for a long time. However, I have to say that once Jack Carr kind of came on the scene, he replaced both Vince and Brad as like my all-time favorite. I still remember, uh, you know, back back when Ryan Stack, before he was an author, he did the Vince Flynn Mitch Rapp fan website, and I remember he posted about this new author Jack Carr who was coming on the scene, and no one knew about the Terminalist, and then I remember I I got the Terminalist I think the week it came out, and it blew me away. I think I finished that book in
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 weeks. It was amazing, but minus one or two things that I've disagreed with Brad on. I've always respected him as an author, and it's awesome that you were able to have him on. So
Yeah, he was
um,
incredible. Kyle Mills was incredible. Don Bentley. I loved Brian Anders and Jeff Wilson. Have been on several times. I'm going to have them on again this spring with their
yeah,
new book, and we're going to talk a little bit of how they're jumping into the Tom Clancy series. So I'm
yeah,
looking forward to
yeah.
that. Those guys are great dudes.
So just podcaster top to podcaster. What do you think your biggest challenge has been in regards to doing your show? so
My
far?
biggest challenge, I think, is probably time, um, because you got to edit and get the episode ready. It's got to be kind of that. It's got to live up to my own standards of quality. So um,
Yeah.
when I flip an episode and I'm done, I save it and I get it, and then I build the actual template for what it's going to look like, and I save it in a file, and then I come back to it later, and then that's when I add the intro and I edit, and then I double check the audio and all that. I think that's probably the biggest one because I gotta have time to do that. So you dedicate at least an hour to recording, and then at least another hour to 2 hours to edit, put it together, export it, and then upload to YouTube, Spotify, and all that. Um, so it's time, really. It's a very time
Yeah.
consuming endeavor.
It's always, I've noticed too, the behind the scenes stuff that people don't really take into account. You
Yeah,
know, same thing
time's the
with,
biggest challenge.
yeah, same thing with writing. You know, people always see the end product, uh, you know, or I guess in this case, listen and or watch the end product, but they don't take into consideration all the time that you have to spend with booking, you know, finding guests in the
Hmm.
first place, or you know, editing and doing post production, which you know now is a little bit easier with certain tools out
Yeah,
there, but you know, it does take some time if
it
you're
does.
pre-recording, and even on if you live stream, you know, afterwards, you got to make sure that you know the stream completed and uploaded properly and all that jazz. So,
Yeah.
um, out of all the guests you've had, which one were you most, I guess, surprised you were able to get, or I guess I don't want to ask you too much of a gotcha question, but which one has been your favorite so far?
Oh man, I wasn't really that surprised to get any of them because a lot of the people that I've asked have been super open to do it. So there wasn't really any pushback. I've only had one guest, and I actually never had her on. But I only had one person who asked me in kind of the early stages of the show, like how many people follow you, how many listeners do you have, blah blah blah. I've only had one person ever ask me that, and um, when I told her, and I just told her the honest truth, I said, I'm growing. It's nothing impressive right now. And she said, I'm going to have to pass. Um, it's not the right demographic for me, which I thought was baloney. But that's another
Yeah,
argument. But it was her way of saying, you're not big enough for me. And I'm fine with that. I
I,
didn't want her on after that, as far as I was concerned. So
I've
um,
had,
none of
yeah,
them.
oh no, go ahead.
Well, I've had, I haven't really had a surprise guest as far as those who wanted to do it because everybody I pretty much asked said yes and was in an agreement to do it. They were excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, I've only had one, I've only had like, I think two guests who kind of, you know, said the same thing. Um, you know, you're not big enough, or you know, this isn't the right podcast. Where I was kind of like, are you sure? But you know, at least you make the offer. You know, to have them
Yeah,
on. You know, and that does happen. And then you know, on the flip side, I've had you know guests who I was a bit surprised that they would come on because I didn't think they would be big enough to you know want to come on the podcast. Steve Stratton being one of them. You know, Steve, as you know, has a fairly big reputation in our field of writers, and so when someone suggested that he come on to the podcast, and I was like, "Really? You think Steve would come on to my podcast?" And they said, "Yeah, and invite him on." And
yeah,
he was, you know, he's been great. He's very down to earth, and we did a podcast last week, and I was surprised at, just how open he was to talking about different things, and it
Yeah,
ended up
Steve's a good
being a
dude.
great episode. So,
Yeah, I love Steve.
um, yeah. Um, so then, as far as writing goes, I guess how did you go down the path of becoming an author and whatnot?
So I really told myself that one day I was going to write a book, and I didn't really know what of. And then I had a lot of success in the military and post in my civilian career for the military. I had a lot of success in doing a lot of things, and I kind of just said, you know what, I think I'm going to finally take that jump. And I was finished with my master's degree. I wasn't going to school or anything like that at the time, so I thought, now would be a great time to jump into a project like that could potentially take several years. So I really just kind of jumped in and I started writing, and I had a leadership book and then I had a fiction book that I was working on kind of at the same time. And I was just kind of doing what I could, what kind of motivated me and what kind of influenced me. And I would bounce back and forth to two projects. And then I met some publishers, I met some agents and some other people, and I started getting feedback from them. And then that's when I pursued getting one of those published and getting some interest drummed up in them. And that's when I ran across my publisher, Tactical 16, which focuses on publishing military books. And I talked to them. I pitched them the idea, and they loved it. And it wasn't done. Like I only had probably a third of it finished, my leadership book. And he was like, when you're done with it, send it to me. I want to read it. We're going to read it over. And then, but we're really, really interested in it. So I finished it up like 6 months later and sent it to them, and they sent me a contract. And then from there, I said, okay, if I do a fiction book, I do something that's necessary, like a leadership book. Then I'm going to do something fun, which is fiction, which is what I really wanted to do. So I've been pursuing fiction ever since, and gone to some conferences, learned a lot, and I think that's probably where. Well, I know I'm going that direction next. It's just a matter of time, I think, before you see something else with my name on it.
Yeah, so you have Here These Truths, which is your nonfiction book.
Yep.
The
Yeah, got a
Ultimate
copy of it
Guide.
right here.
Oh, very nice.
Well, it's my
Um,
display only because it's got an error on it, but I'll take the sticky note off, and then there it is.
very nice. And yeah, I'm looking at your website. We just mentioned Steve. He left a very nice review of your book. So, what made you decide to, I guess, want to write a leadership book?
Well, in 2019, I was the Air Force Civilian Supervisor of the Year, and that was a really, really big award. And it kind of turned a light bulb on in my brain and said, um, when I looked over that package and looked at the awesome things that people wrote about me, I just said I really owe it to those people who helped, push me to this level, that I do something to thank them. And I didn't want to do something useless or just walk around and hand out thank you cards or anything like that. I really wanted to kind of do something kind of in their honor, and I wanted to do like a lessons learned. And I was real passionate about leadership then, and I still am. But I really felt like that was a good way of getting that out, and kind of saying some of my lessons learned. And a lot of times you see those kind of books from people that are CEOs, former
Yeah,
presidents, military generals, and all that stuff. They all have a status that to the normal everyday human being is not obtainable, or it's not something that they're aspiring to be. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm a little bit more of a common man. I have not been in some fancy um, military position. I'm not a CEO or anything like that. So why don't I put out something that is a little bit more down to earth, truthful and honest, and people can take it or leave it. So that's really what I did. I just took that honest and truthful approach to leadership. Um, and in the book, I expose my flaws. I say what I did and didn't, or I did well and I didn't do well. And I just kind of lay it all out there. And it's all based around an algorithm, which I call the leadership algorithm. And that's effort plus process equals progress. And if you follow that, that's kind of the gem that you need to be a successful leader. And success depends upon what you're looking to get out of it. But that's it kind of in a nutshell. It's something I'm super proud of. I still get asked about it to this day. So I definitely think it's had an impact on people's lives, which was the whole point in the first place.
That's awesome. I haven't read it yet, but I might have to pick up a copy myself. One thing I have
Send me your address offline in the email, and I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh, I'd be honored. Thank you. One thing I notice off the top of my head, it doesn't seem like it's very thick. It seems like it's relatively thin, and I actually kind of take that as a good thing because as someone who I didn't major in business, but I took a lot of business courses in college, and there were a few leadership books that were very they were good, but they were thick and they kind of drawled on. And you don't seem very egotistical at all. I've noticed that a lot of people in the business and leadership world sometimes they do seem a bit egotistical, and their books are thicker because of it, I guess.
Yeah, I like to ramble on. I wanted to be
Yeah.
straight and to the point. No frills. It's nothing super fancy. It's just a little over 200 pages. It was longer, and I cut some stuff out that I kind of felt like didn't really get to the point as well as I liked it to. And there's a lot of my backstory in there, kind of how I grew up and things like that kind of almost made it more of a leadership memoir. So I cut a little bit of that out too, because people don't want to hear about my boring life necessarily. And I wanted to give people something that they could just open up and flip to a page or to a certain chapter, and they could just learn about a certain subject, and then they can move on. So I wanted it to be concise and short and sweet and to the point and packed full of good knowledge and things to take away. So yeah, it's not super thick, but I'm not a long-winded guy when it comes to talking about myself.
You definitely seem interesting to me though. So I do think a memoir in the future might be worthwhile. So
never know.
Yep. Now, as far as your fiction writing goes, I'm seeing a lot of different series. So have you released anything yet, or is your fiction mainly a work in progress right now?
Yeah, fiction is a work in progress. We got the first book, Acts of Lies, is with an editor, and we're working on getting that kind of finalized, and then that will go out on submission. I've got a lot of good feedback from it, so I'm really hopeful that it will attract some attention with publishers and with some agents. So I'm super pumped about that one. And then, of course, I got the second book in that series, The Enemies Within, is in progress. I'm probably about 40% done with that. And then when I have some off time, I work on other projects like Hunted and Between the Lines of War and a novella series I got called Conditions. So I'm kind of working on it's in a way I want to always be writing something. So when you send a book off to the editor, you don't want to touch it. You want to just let them have it. So in an effort to put that aside, I moved on to some other things, and then you get a bright idea and say, hey, this would be a cool idea. It doesn't fit my current project, so let me start something new over here and just put it on the back burner. So all those projects I kind of have in the works. None of them are completed except for Acts of Lies. and just want to keep writing, keep working on stuff, and it might be years before you see anything from me. But you know what? You'll have stuff in the queue for when you're ready to go.
Yeah, that's always something good to have. It's always good to have multiple coals in the fire.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't want to assume anything, but it sounds like you're going with the traditional publishing method. Um, what made you decide to go down that route? And have you ever considered self-publishing some of your
Um,
work?
I haven't really considered self-publishing yet, just because I really want to give the traditional publishing a shot, and I want to see if I can get an agent or a big publisher to sign on. And I think for me, at least for me, um, I don't want to necessarily like sell myself short. And I'm not saying that people who self-published have done that. I'm not saying that at all. Um, but I don't want to sit around and self-publish and push my book and push my projects and then wonder what if. I would rather
Sure.
submit to a big publisher, submit to agents, and have them tell me no, and then all the same time I'm learning more about publishing, and then I decide to self-publish and go that route. I'd rather go about it that way. There's some people who don't want to do that. They want to go straight to self-publishing. They want to control everything. They want to advertise. They want to do all the work, and they want it to be theirs. And that's totally cool. I think that's awesome. There's plenty of self-publishers um, or self-published authors that are incredibly successful, and I tip my hat to them. But I do want to see if I can't get attention, and I think I will, um,
Yeah.
based on some of the feedback I've gotten and some of the people that are supportive of it. Um, I'm going to give that a shot first, and then we'll see what happens.
That is very understandable and very admirable as well. I ask because most of the other guests I've had have been in publishing. Both Steve and Eric Bishop, both friends of the show. Uh, when I first had Eric on the show, when he first released The Body Man back in 2021, he went through a traditional publisher, and then they went out of business. So
Yeah,
he started his own imprint, um, and so most of the people I've talked to have actually gone the self-publishing route. So it's always interesting to talk to someone like you who has gone the traditional route, and I'm just always curious to find what people's motives are for doing that.
yeah. Well, I guess we'll
So
see what happens, man. But yeah, I think the big motivation is, you want to share your story. That's my big thing.
yeah,
I don't care too much about the money. Um, because I have a good job and good benefits and all that stuff now. My wife works and she makes plenty of money too. So that's not a driving factor, but certainly sharing my story with a mass audience um, is something that I desire. And I think the way to do that is with a bigger publisher, obviously. So we'll
sure.
see how it goes. You might have to be one of those things that I eventually have to self-publish, and um, if I do, I'll come up with a big marketing plan and I'll push it as hard as I can and use word of
Yeah.
mouth and all that fun stuff.
My grandfather was a published author. He wrote two business leadership books back in the '80s, and he
Very cool.
retired. He has since passed, but like
Oh, I'm
uh,
sorry.
2 years ago, I was talking to him about some of my writing projects, and he actually encouraged me to self-publish. He was in his 80s, but he kept up on current technology, and he was very sharp until the very end. And he was like, I know people said that this Kindle self-publishing thing was a drag, but I think it's actually worth looking into. So, that's what I did, kind of, secretly, and I released my first novella back in July, and it's been not a huge success, but a moderate success. I'm kind of a bit surprised at how many
Well,
people
you've done
liked.
more than what other people have done. A lot of people would quit
Yeah,
and they wouldn't do it. So I mean, you're successful in the fact that you've actually published something, and like I said, a lot of people will doubt themselves and they'll quit, or and they'll just put it on the back burner and say, "I won't do it. I'm afraid." So
well, and
kudos to you for doing it, man.
I mean, I would say the same thing to you for podcasting. There are a lot of people who they start a podcast and they think they're going to be Joe Rogan or Adam Carolla or name your big name. They think that they're going to be that guy overnight, right? And
Good luck.
yeah, you can't, even if you do go with even if you have the most fancy setup, even if you go through, you know, it's funny because there are also podcasting companies out there too that you can
Yeah,
sign with, and even
you
if
got
you
to have the
sign with
content.
one of those, it doesn't really matter if you don't. Even if you have a good show, there's a grind to it. You just have to keep putting out episodes,
Yeah,
and that's all there is to it. Um, at the end of the day, you just got to keep grinding.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
so another thing that I kind of find interesting is I was listening to your show with Eric Bishop, and one of the things that he brought up was um, the fact that most authors will not read their book after they publish it
Hmm.
or after they finish it. And I don't know how you are, but with the exception of editing, um, I'm kind of the same way with podcasts. After I finish editing, um, an episode or making clips, I'll post it, and then if I listen to the episode, it won't be for like another 6 months or even a couple of years down the line. And same thing with my book. I've read it for little references for continuity for my sequel, but other than that, I haven't listened or read any of my previous projects, so I find that to be interesting.
Yeah, I do listen to the podcast because um and I hate for it to sound conceited or anything, but I listen to it just because I bring guests on to help promote them, and if I listen to it and I get an extra view, then it helps um,
Right.
spread it out there. So I definitely put it on. I put it on my phone, on Spotify and Apple, and then I put it on my computer on YouTube, and
Yeah.
I'll listen to it or I'll just let it stream while I'm working on something. But the book, um, I haven't really gone back and read the book. There's something about reading my own work and hearing it in my own voice that just kind of, I don't know. I have used it as reference, and I've been on podcasts before where I actually had to break it out and kind of flip through a page and be like, yeah, okay, I do remember saying that.
Yeah.
But no, I'd like to read for pleasure, and I just don't know if I like reading my own work like that necessarily. So
That's kind
I
of
don't know.
that's kind of how I feel with podcasting for the most part. There will be an episode or two where I will listen to an episode with Steve or someone like you or even Eric where I'll listen to the episode just because I love the guest so much. But generally,
Yeah,
if it's just me and my co-host like covering the political news of the week, I hear my own voice regularly enough, just in my own head. I don't, it's kind of like watching a movie you've seen over and over again. You can almost kind of predict what, the next scene is
yeah,
going to be. So,
yeah.
I
I
guess
agree.
I'm kind of the same way. But, so, um, I guess, I mean, I don't know where we want to think of this. But I guess what else is on the horizon for you as far as projects go? Anything that you're looking to accomplish in 2024 and beyond?
Well, I really hope to find a home for Acts of Lies, and hopefully that'll be a multiple book deal where I can tell. I have 3 books in the series that I have planned out with Abigail Stevens, my protagonist, and if I can land a home for that to tell that story in 2024, that would be a big deal. Whether it'll publish in 2024, I don't know, but if I could at least land an agent or land a book deal in 2024, that would be ideal. And then all that time continuing to work on the podcast and get some of those other projects done. I'm really excited about my Hunted book, and that's just a working title, but it's a very primitive book. It's about 2 guys that go out in the Montana wilderness to do some elk hunting like they do every year, and they kind of run across some dangerous stuff, some trafficking rings, some connections to politicians and connections to their own past that they don't realize. That's a very primitive book. I'm trying to use like no firearms in it, and focusing more on the hand-to-hand combat and survival of things, which I think is really, really cool, really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And then Between the Lines of War, which is a really cool book that I kind of just started recently. It's more of a first-person type of book, and this is going to be a very more of a traditional thriller when it comes to kind of how I'm approaching it. And I mean, instead of doing third person, I'm doing first person. It's going to be from the view of a journalist who has kind of coined this term clandestine journalism, and he is investigating, further than most journalists want to investigate and do their research and come up with a really good headline, where he wants to come up and he wants to do research and investigations and come up with the stories that are not being told, the stories that are trying to be hidden away in the closets and the skeletons that need to stay there. And he wants to reveal kind of the truth. And I think that's really cool because there's not a lot of organizations and people out there right now that are trying to find the real truth. They're just taking the opinions of the media and the opinions and sayings of our politicians, and they're saying, okay, it must be the truth. And
Right.
we know that it's not. So that's something I really want to explore and kind of expose that and the dangers kind of behind it, and some of the corruption that's going on in Washington. So
Mm-hmm.
those are kind of some of the things I want to work on in 2024 and complete some of those projects and then start finding a home for them.
Who are your inspirations for writing? Favorite authors, anything like that?
Well, I love Tom Clancy. I think everybody
Yeah.
does. He's kind of our godfather. I love Clancy. I love Flynn. Um, I love Brad Thor. He's one of the guys who really kind of got me back into reading for pleasure. Was when I picked up Brad Thor's Full Black, and
Same here.
Mike Madden. If I had to pick an author that is my absolute favorite, I would say Mike Madden, because I read his first book, Drone, with Troy Pierce, back when I was in the military, and it really got me back into reading for pleasure again. And that's when I got back into Clancy, got back into Thor and all of them again. Love Jack Carr. Andrews and Wilson are huge. I've been on a Mark Greaney kick lately just because I think he's one of those very talented guys that are going to be, when he retires, I think he's going to be considered a generational talent, and he's going to be considered like the Clancy of like our lifetime, because I think the way he crafts a book and the intelligence that he has that goes into it, I think it's just very, Mark Greaney is very, very gifted. And
Yeah.
so, but there's tons of people I like: Emma Adair, Steve Stratton, Eric Bishop. There's a guy by the name of Richard Maverick who has some really cool ideas. I'm trying to get him to publish more. because he's got some really cool stuff. Tons of people. Claire Eisenthal right now. She's a sweetheart. I love Claire, and she has a book called The Rising Order, which is really incredible. And we've been doing some stuff lately, some IG lives and all that.
She actually just followed me on Twitter, and I haven't yet, but your podcast with her is actually in my up next queue. So I find that kind of funny that the same day she follows me, your podcast popped up in
Very
my
cool.
up next queue. So
you'll like it. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah. I think one of the other things about your podcast that is so good, and maybe it's partial because of the format, I'll admit, but like I've listened to your episodes out of order, and even with a lot of interview podcasts, you can't necessarily do that. I've noticed. You kind of should listen chronologically, but like I've jumped into, just your podcast based on some of the guests that you've had on, and I think that really, that's really interesting. How the way you ask, questions, you've made it pretty accessible for people to just jump in wherever. So
yeah, I tried really hard, and thank you for the compliments. I tried really hard to not date the show, and I tried not to say the date in it at all. I tried not to make it sound too relevant to a time period. That way, you could pick up any episode and you can turn it on and listen to it. And yeah, you might find out in there somewhere that I'm talking to a guest who has a book that's releasing soon.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But the content and what we talk about, I want it to come from a place where I'm talking to a subject matter expert. They are an expert in something. So let's pick their brain and let's kind of not justify, but let's reinforce why they wrote this book. And what did they do to find out about it? Like, T.R. Hendricks. He's done a lot of survival stuff. He has a big background in security. So when he wrote The Instructor, he has a lot of background in that. So it's like, well, let's talk about all that. Let's talk about your military career and kind of what led you up to writing this book, because I want to tell your story. And then for people that are listening, I want them to listen to that and go, okay, this guy did this, this, and this, and he has this background similar to mine. Well, maybe I can do it too. And then you've done something more than just entertain people. You've changed their life.
Yeah, I definitely find that insightful. Knowing nothing about Andrews and Wilson, I didn't know that they were both. I don't know if they were both on a submarine, but I think it is Jeff the submarine engineer. I can't remember.
No,
I can't remember.
I want to say that was. I think it's Brian.
Okay. I think it is Brian, but
Brian's a submarine guy and Jeff's a surgeon.
Oh yeah. I think just learning that is fascinating, and then it kind of makes sense because you can tell, oh, well, that makes sense that based on this character, one of them would be a surgeon.
Yeah, they got the background for sure to do a lot of the stuff that they've done and write the books that they've written. So I've heard nothing but good stuff from some people who have had first look at their Tom Clancy book that's going to come out this spring. And they've said nothing but rave things about it, where it might be one of the best post Clancy books that they've written so far. So this will be a big deal. And it's like the 40th anniversary of the Hunt for Red October. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah. It's been a year or so since I've read The Hunt for Red October, but I just finished Patriot Games, and that book, for being published back in the 80s, holds up extremely well. Plus, I mean, I know that some people give the movies a hard time, but I definitely think that the Patriot Games is one of the better Harrison Ford movies out there, actually, in my
Yeah, I liked him in
humble
it too.
opinion.
I think movies deserve a certain amount of criticism because they do have to cut corners a little bit, and for as long as
Sure.
Clancy writes a book, you can't fit that into an hour and a half movie. You just can't.
Yeah.
So that would be awful hard to do. But I thought they did. I thought several of his movies did pretty good. They did a pretty good job.
What what do you think of what did you think as a Clancy fan of the Jack Ryan series on Amazon?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. They obviously had to kind of update it to a little bit more modern. But I
Yeah.
thought John Krasinski did a really good job playing Jack Ryan. I thought it was pretty good. I really did. I mean, there's some issues with it, but I mean, for being a mainstream show, I thought it
Yeah.
was good and entertaining.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised at I was kind of surprised at how good it was. Was it perfect? No,
No,
but
no,
I
it wasn't perfect.
I definitely think that, if anything, that proved that John Krasinski, I think, could be a serious actor. He was famous
Oh
for
yeah,
doing The Office for all those years, and a lot of people were kind of like, come on, you're telling me that Jim from The Office is going to be
yeah.
playing Jack Ryan, but no, he pulled it
I
off.
thought he did good.
So, um, yeah. Um, and then you mentioned that you're doing a book about political journalism. Uh, and I am kind of curious. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole if you don't want to. But I am kind of curious. I guess, what are your, I guess, political beliefs or something? If you don't want to answer, that's fine. But I'm kind of curious
Um,
what kind
so
of your
I would
inspiration
say
for.
I'm a big believer in freedom.
Yeah,
So I'm a believer in less government oversight in our lives. There's obviously some smart places where we need to have government intervene for our safety, and for our prosperity, but I do believe that there's a point in time where the government gets too involved in our lives, and
sure.
I'm not. I'm a registered Republican, but I believe that my life does not have to be just voided down to a certain political party, and I don't have to believe every single last thing that the Republican Party believes in. I do not have to do that. It's there's
Yeah,
no rule book or anything like that. There's no code of rules that you sign when you come up and you register to vote. You just pick a party, and I think the cool thing of that is you have the freedom to still believe in what you want to believe. You do not have to be brainwashed by your party into believing every single last thing. And again, this is my opinion. So people that are listening,
sure.
this is my opinion. You do not have to agree with me. That's perfectly fine. But I believe that they shouldn't be involved in as much of our business. And I think if they're going to be involved in our business that much, then I think we should have a say, a larger say, in how they spend our money on taxes. Like if you're going to tax us, I think we deserve a larger say. And we didn't send you to Washington to get rich. That goes for all of you. Every single one of you members of Congress, the president, vice president, don't care what party you are in. We didn't send you to Congress and to Washington to get rich. We sent you there to legislate and to help us be the freest country in the world for a reason, and not to be greedy and all that stuff. So I believe in freedom. I believe in the freedom to choose and the freedom to live my life how I want to, as long as I'm not causing harm to other people. I think
Yeah.
I should be allowed to do that. And when too much government intersects with that ideal, right there is when I have a problem.
I I pretty much have the same values. I mean, I would consider myself a kind of like a right leaning libertarian, but like I'm not far right either. I don't really care what people do in their personal life, so long as you're
Yeah,
not
me neither.
really,
Like, if you want to do whatever you want to inside your home, as long as you're not like personally like trying to bother me, and you're not trying to rub it in my face. You're not trying to change my life because of what you believe in.
yeah,
You go do your own thing. I don't care. You're not going to hear a complaint from me.
yeah. One thing that I am kind of curious about, this is something I've kind of experienced, is after the pullout of Afghanistan, which in my opinion was uh, more or less disastrous. I don't know if Biden is, entirely to blame. I think that there were logistics, you know, I think blame can kind of be shared equally, maybe among the administration. But uh, I one thing after that kind of worries me is I'm hearing people talk, oh, well, we need to go into Ukraine, or we need to, go into Israel and, back the Israelis in Palestine. I'm very pro military and I'm very pro veteran. And I do believe that we have a place um, to help the world when we can. But um, after being in the Middle East for 20 years militarily and really having very little to show for it, I'm a little hesitant to say that we should maybe send troops back over there or over to Ukraine. And it's wild because some people who I respect have said, oh, well, you're just like an anti war hippie or you're wishy washy. And I'm like, well, I'm not a veteran. I never served, but I know veterans who have had their limbs blown off or who have post traumatic stress disorder and who have suffered, and it's really difficult for me to look at them and then look at what happened in the Middle East and say, yeah, you getting your legs blown off was worth it, because I'm not so sure in the end it was. And I just I have a difficult time with the idea that we should go back to war. So I'm just kind of curious. I hate to ask, but as a veteran, what is kind of your opinion on military action these days?
I think we have to stop being the world's police. Um, we have a lot of allies, and I think that's great. I do, and I want to protect those allies. Um, but I have an issue with us constantly getting involved in every single
Yeah,
little thing, because it almost comes across like we're bullies, and because they're talking right now that there's a potential conflict in Yemen with the Houthis or whatever, the Houths or whatever they call themselves, that terrorist group. Um,
yeah,
and then China and Taiwan, they could do something. So then we have Ukraine that we're helping be involved in, and then we have a potential conflict in Yemen, and then we have a potential conflict in Taiwan, and then of course the whole Israeli thing is going on. So at what point in time do we say we're stretched a little thin? We can't keep doing this. One of our other big allies is going to have to step up and take over and be the lead on these things, because
yeah,
um, I'm not anti-war by any means, and I think there are places where we need to go and we need to kick ass and take some names. But I also think that we don't necessarily need to be the world's police all the time,
yeah,
and we need to empower our other allies to get involved at our same level. If you look at the amount of money that we spend in NATO and the UN and all that, we spend all this money up here and everybody else is down here. I think a more of a fair share, more of that peanut butter kind of spread is like, okay, guys, if we're going to do this and we're going to be United Nations and we're going to be NATO, we all need to be on the same level. And maybe we need to start sharing this a little bit, because we can't just keep getting involved in every single little thing, because for one, our military can't sustain it. In our military industrial sector, can't keep up with the production of it if we're in 4 different wars. I mean,
Right.
and that's a recipe for loss. And I don't want to lose any more of my brothers and sisters over something that is unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and thank you for answering that. I know that can be kind of a tough question, but no, I mean, I just
Yeah,
wanted to ask because, I mean, I'm a civilian. Like I said, I have immense respect for the military, but I've never served. I'm not anti-war, but these days, according to who you talk to, it kind of seems some people have suddenly labeled me as being anti-war, and I'm like, no, I'm not anti-war. I just don't want to see, I want to see minimal casualties as much
sure.
as
Yeah, I think everybody
possible.
does.
So, yeah. Well, anything else you want to promote, or I see you have a ton of links here on your page. It seems like you do some work with veterans as well. So
Yeah, I'm always trying to promote veterans, veteran-owned businesses. So I post a lot of that stuff on my social media. Um, I think the biggest thing is people can go to my website, jeffclarkofficial.com, and that's where all of the good stuff is. My social media, my projects that I'm working on, podcast episodes, and I think that's really kind of what. If I promote anything, I like to promote the website because that's kind of my catch-all for everything to go to find out more about me.
yeah, it's a great website.
Well, thank you.
So I definitely recommend that people go there and check out the podcast as well. It's great, and I'll have the links to all your stuff in the description. And I would love for you to come back, once your books are close to coming out and
Sure.
whatnot. So
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
yep, and we might get you on the live podcast here soon as well. So we'd love to have you on for that as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we'll do it.
anyway, folks, well, I guess that's all we have for today. I want to thank everyone for listening, and thanks, Jeff, once again for coming on. And we will talk at you down the road on Wednesday. And until then, God bless, God save this great nation, and God freedom legacy in that order. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Whitfield Report on the NGC Network. Please visit Sam's website at www.thesamwhitfield.com and support Sam on Patreon at patreon.com/Whitfield Report. Until next time, God bless, God save this great nation, and God, freedom, legacy, in that order.